Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. Join Reiki Master and Quantum Healing expert Wes Coons as he guides listeners through the depths of self-discovery and spiritual enlightenment to uncover the version of you we haven't met yet.
Welcome to Enlightenment Unknown, Life of a Spiritual Nomad. My name is Wes Coons, and welcome back to the show. We went on the road to my friend Rocky's place in Virginia Beach. Hey, Rocky.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
So thanks for having me at your office. Where are we? What's the name of your place?
My personal office is Tune Into Wellness, but we are in the Liberty Building there on Liberty Way near the courthouse.
Nice. I like that Liberty Way. Sounds like we're in America now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a new concept in this country. We were supposed to have recorded this last week.
Right.
And then we had the blizzard of 2025, which was like, what do we got, 8 or 10 inches of snow?
I had 12 at my house, so.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we probably had 8 at my house, but I took the dog down to the beach and she was getting buried up past her chest in the snowdrift. That was fun. She had a good time with that.
My dog wouldn't go out because he's short.
So tell me what you do here. What kind of healing work do you do?
So the healing work that I do here is the services I offer are group meditations. I do Reiki and I do hypnotherapy, both clinical and regressive hypnotherapy. And all the work involves tuning into our bodies and understanding what we need. We can learn so much by connecting with our bodies. Our bodies have the answers to all of life's questions. It's just a matter of learning and understanding what our body's saying.
Well, it goes back to the old saying, the answer is within us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 100%.
My whole life, I would go ask people one at a time, trying to figure out my life, figure out who I was. And then I was nervous to not do what that person had suggested. So I ended up backing myself into this hole. And the reality is the answers were inside me. I just didn't know how to find that.
Right. And I think that's true for most everybody. And I feel like our world is so chaotic and so busy, and there's always so much going on, and we're trying to process so much. And even think about just scrolling Facebook, or we're driving in the car and listening to like podcasts and watching TV and watching the news, and there's just information overload, and we really don't take those moments just to be quiet and make that connection with ourselves. I almost feel like it might be hard for people to do that because they're so used to like all the noise constantly.
Sure.
That it feels uncomfortable in that quiet.
Well, I think a lot of people run from that. In NA and AA, they talk about when the drugs or alcohol are gone, what is there left to do? Right? And that's where that silence comes in. That's where you are left. I don't know if you guys can hear that on the show or not, but that's the Navy, I think, flying over something. But we're not going to fix that. We're going to keep going. So once those distractions are gone, what is there left to do? And that's where people panic, and that's where people feel like they need to disconnect because we've disconnected our whole life.
Right. Yeah. And that quiet, like getting uncomfortable with those feelings, the hard feelings, right, that you're finding in that silence can be uncomfortable. And we're always meant to like brush it off, or we don't cry, like all those things that we're outwardly showing. It's supposedly a sign of weakness, but honestly, it's a sign of strength and that ability to feel those feelings.
Well, one of my superpowers is I make all the ladies cry. So, so 98% of my clients are women, and they start to cry in my office. I'm like, hey, that's my superpower. You're supposed to cry. It's when somebody comes in and they don't, or they say they don't, is a huge red flag. That's the pain in our body needing to leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't even know what the word is to say with that, but that ability to feel and have that self-reflection and understand why we're crying or we're pissed off or whatever it is. Learning to understand that and feeling that is how we can actually get rid of all of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I found myself in the NA program, 16, 18 years ago after a back injury, and I went to 5 or 6 meetings every week for 2.5 years. And I cried and shared at every meeting. And somebody asked me, he said, why do you cry so much? I'm like, dude, that's because I've got so much fucking pain in my body. I have got to get it out, because the drugs and the alcohol wasn't the problem. The problem was my not able to process my feelings and emotions properly that got me there.
Right. And I think especially as males, like that's frowned upon even more. Females cry, okay, it's one thing, right? That's that whole male, female, the male's got to be so tough. But really, I find it to be the toughest guys are the ones that aren't afraid to cry.
Sure.
So
it's funny, the episode I did, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 episodes ago, and the name of it was Men Do Heal. And I thought it was ironic, out of all the episodes. By the way, we hit 3,700 downloads today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so 3,700 episodes have been listened to since we started the podcast. Thank you. I appreciate that. But that episode is the least listened to episode out of them all. Isn't that funny?
It is interesting. Why do you think males are more afraid to deal with those feelings?
You know, I think we're pre-programmed not to. When I was growing up, my dad would tell me all the time, you need to be a man. You need thick skin. You need this. You need that. I'm like, fuck you. How about this? Fuck you. I love you, but fuck you. And the reality is I didn't need to have thick skin. I needed to learn how to process my feelings and emotions properly. I needed to learn how to feel like I could take up space in a room because I didn't feel like I had a voice, right?
Yeah.
So I joined the Marine Corps because I was picked on and teased and beat up a lot, and I was smaller than everybody else. And I found the most difficult thing I could do. I signed up for it. Then I did the most difficult thing the Marine Corps would allow me to do. And I succeeded at that. And lo and behold, when I graduated boot camp, nobody laid their hands on me anymore. Isn't that ironic? But that's a whole nother therapy session right there that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I wanted to learn how to be aggressive. I wanted to learn how to be violent. And I was very, very good at that in the Marine Corps because that's what we do. But the reality is, at that stage in my life, that's what I felt I needed, because I didn't know how to heal. Going to a therapist or whatever didn't seem to work. And it wasn't until I was 50 years old before I started finding out how to heal. And that was I went to the Reiki Wellness Center and took my first Reiki 1 class. And I heard them talk about, you can live a Reiki blessed life, or you could take this class, or you could get your Reiki master course or whatever. You could go through this, or you can live it. And I was so defeated and so broken. I said, that's what I want. And I've chased that dream ever since.
That's a very powerful story. Like a transformation that is too, to go from a broken human to a badass Marine.
Yeah.
To like a really insightful and beautiful healer.
Thank you. So the one thing I have been successful at, and I've failed at many things, and I'm grateful for those failures, but the one thing I've been successful at is putting one foot in front of the other.
And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, right? And even knowing that there's a step.
You did some healing work on me the other day. What did we do? What did you call that?
So that was a regression. And when I do regressions with people, I leave that open to them if it's going to be healing within this life, or if it's a past life regression. And honestly, I thought you were going to go healing in this life, and you floated your ass back to the past.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going. We're skipping over 5 years old. Okay, all right, here we go. So yeah, so I just call that regressions, and not everybody believes in past lives. And so I leave it to their mind to go exactly where they need to be. I trusted when you went into that past life that was actually what you needed versus doing healing within this life.
Yeah, that healing session was interesting.
Yeah, I had to do some work on myself after that one.
Hey, look, I make all the ladies cry. It's my specialty.
Okay, I didn't cry.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm exceptional, right? No.
Yeah, I'll work on that. I'll make you cry next week. How about that?
All right, sounds good.
Yeah. So we went in, and I was trying to heal, if I remember right, because we've healed some of it, so it's hard for me to remember parts of that, which is interesting. But where the belief was that everybody left me, right?
Yeah.
And And the first lifetime it went back to, if I remember correct, was me standing over a grave where I just buried my wife and children.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just like, and you were not in a good place mentally.
Yeah, that was painful. The funny thing is, every time I go to do something of that nature, I'm like, well, what if it doesn't work? What if that human brain kicks in a little bit and says, what if I'm just making it up in my mind? And I remind myself, you know what? I'm connected to the divine. I'm going to do the work.
No.
I trust and believe in you, and I'm here, and I'm just going to go with the flow.
Yeah. And I actually had a conversation with another client last week, and this particular person wasn't sure that they believed the past life that they went to. And I was just like, okay, do you really think you could have made this whole thing up? I mean, I even had them look down at their feet and tell me what their shoes, like what was on their feet. And they gave me this beautiful description of these shoes. And they were like, yeah, I could make this up. And I was like, oh, okay, very good. But what was really important in this particular session was a lesson that came from going back to that life. And that lesson was very much relevant to her current life, right?
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, so what if it was made up? But there was a lesson in it. And that lesson was real.
That's right.
And it was real in those lessons, and they are being carried over into this life.
Absolutely. I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen it a lot, is when I've worked on somebody. Perfect example I had, I think I've talked about this on the show before. I had a lady on the table, her right shoulder and her right hip always hurt, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. So long story short, I'm doing some healing work. A past life showed itself to me, and she was a little girl playing by a railroad track back in the 1800s, and she had fallen under, and those were cut off, and she died there. So I put the arm and the leg back on. I blew energy into her until she looked reasonably well. Then I stood her up and kept doing that until everything looked healed. She was not bleeding anymore. And I held her up in the air, and I tilted my hand like I was pouring water out, and she disappeared. And the second I did that, the client on the table, who did not realize I was doing this work, said the pain just left. Her eyes were covered, not blindfolded, but you got the little cover over your eyes so she's comfortable. And the second I did that, it went away, and it's never been back.
Wow.
So I've seen over and over. And I was talking to Lakota yesterday. Have you met Lakota?
I have not met Lakota.
Well, she's going to be here in April doing some sweat lodges and stuff. So if anybody's interested, you can participate. Just hit me up. But she was telling me where she had been stabbed in a past life. And she says, I have pain here in this life today, still from that. So it's interesting how the last day of somebody's life will carry the energy and pain into somebody's life this time. I have removed things of that nature probably 70 or 80 times easy.
Sure. Yeah. And that's too what people can do in regressions like that is they can come to the end of that life and choose what they want to take with them and what they want to leave in those lives. When you can leave that pain, whatever the suffering in those lives, and bring the lessons, bring those positive pieces from those lives. And that's really a powerful tool.
Yeah. Well, somebody said a long time ago, and it just resonated with me, and I never forgot it, that we are spiritual beings in a human body.
That's a good one, yeah.
And that makes sense to me because I don't know about you, I've never felt like I fit in here. Everything for me as a little boy, maybe because I didn't really have friends, I got picked on a lot, so I felt isolated and left alone. But I just remember always having the feeling that I didn't belong here, and I never asked to come here. I used to say that all the time.
Yeah, and do you think that's stuff from your past life rather than things in this life?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
Could be. And, I think my spiritual awakening happened 5 years ago. I went through that. I don't know. Did I ever tell you I went through the haunted house? Did we ever talk about that?
We briefly did, but I did listen to your old podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
When that was over, all of a sudden I had these gifts that I never had before. And I remember as a child just sobbing, begging God, I just wanted to be special. I wanted to be different. I wanted to be something different. And when I realized I had these gifts, I'm like, it took 50 years to get here. But he answered that. And I'm like, I'm not going to turn my back on God ever again. I'm not going to turn my back and be angry at Jesus for not pulling me out of that room when things were happening to me as a little boy, because Father Munford taught me that Jesus wasn't there to pull me out of the room to keep me from being molested. He was there to love me unconditionally through what I was going through. And that changed everything for me. So I don't remember which episode, but we talk about that in depth. But when I came to that realization, I was able to let that anger go, because as a parent, I can't walk my daughter everywhere and protect her all the time, but I can love her through everything she goes through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and I truly believe that love is the most powerful of all feelings, emotions, existence. I think love always wins. So
Yeah, it does. When I started doing this healing work, I would see things in people that look like snakes or whatever. And I would grab it by its head and snap its neck and pull it out. And it was suggested to me that maybe I remove it. Maybe I don't kill it. Maybe I remove it with unconditional love. And there was some unhealed anger in me still. I'm a retired combat Marine. We don't think that way.
yeah.
But damn, if they weren't fucking right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It changes it too, right? You pull it out violently like that and kill it versus pulling it out with love
Yeah.
and sending it off in love. Like there's a completely different energy with that.
So the only time I do that now is if they piss me off. So sorry, God. I'm just like,
right.
I'm pulling out like I'll see it. They'll try to bite me, and I'm like, we're not doing that. And I'll do the Ho'oponopono prayer. I'll be like, thank you, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me. And after a little bit, my patience wears thin. I'll just snap its neck and pull it out. And I was like, I'll repent later for that one.
I'll have my conversation later with God. It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. What do you do? Hey, it's one of those, I'm like, if it wasn't supposed to happen, it wouldn't have happened, right? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what all my friends
You
say.
keep telling yourself that. That's fine.
Yeah. So when we did that session together, so was I under hypnosis? What was that? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You were in a very deep hypnotic state.
So is that why I quack every time the doorbell rings now?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to put those kind of things. Usually it's like oink like a pig and roll over, but
No.
I gave you a simple quack with the doorbell.
Well,
No.
have you made it to where your husband, every time you snap your finger, he starts vacuuming the house? Has that worked yet?
I wish, but he already does the dishes, and I just use the lure of my femininity on that one now.
That's fine. So I've got to ask, because I've never asked before.
Okay.
How do you get the name Rocky?
Oh, okay. Well, my real name is Rochelle with an A. Everybody likes to say Rachel. I am not Rachel. But my mom and my godmother conspired when I was little that they didn't want me to be a Shelley, and they didn't want me to be a cheerleader. So hence the name Rocky, and I was not a cheerleader. I was a big jock, so mission accomplished.
Nice. Every time I say your name, I'm ready for you to punch me in the jaw or
I
something.
probably should maybe sometimes.
Yeah, maybe.
No.
It might get me moving a little bit quicker, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So, how does it work? Because the first life that it showed me, I was bearing my family. Then some other things happened, and then we switched to a different time or whatever. How does that work?
So in hypnosis, I will, if somebody's in a life and we've gotten what we need to from that life, I will do a count of 3 and tell them to go to another point in time that they're needing for the healing. Whatever that goal of the session is, I ask them to go to that point, and I let your mind take you where it needs to go.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that mine went, I think after that, it went right to Jesus, didn't it? Something like that?
Yeah, it did.
Somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had 3 or 4 things there with him. And I don't know, it just seems strange to me that so often when I'm doing this kind of work, I'm in that time period.
Well, you had to have been there in that
Yeah.
time period for you to go there, and the detail that you had and the emotion that you had it was palpable, like it was real. And I mean, honestly, I was just like, and where are you? And you could feel his blood dripping down onto you.
Yeah.
And as a normal conscious human, I was like, what the actual fuck is going on right now? I'm like, oh, if I had some pearls, I might have been clutching them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a little intense on my side because I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school. I studied the Bible. I know the Bible, and I was and very much believe in Jesus and all of that. So for me, it was very special and a little jaw dropping. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what we're talking about is the first time I had a vision with Jesus, he took me to the foot of Jesus. And that's in episode 1 somewhere, I think. Or season 1, episode 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
I was working with Sandra Grace Brooks. Did you ever know Sandra?
I know. Mm-mm.
You would have loved her. Whenever I talk about her, I can hear her, and she's laughing right now. She always had a smile on her face, and she always laughed. But I remember that vision came in, and they showed everything in such great detail of the 2 other people being crucified and the pathway and the Roman soldiers and stuff there. And I remember telling Sandra Grace that I didn't understand why the Roman soldiers were there, because I didn't realize they had crucified Jesus. I didn't know anything about Jesus. But when we went back this time, the first time I didn't see blood on him, but this time his blood was dripping on me. What do you think that means?
I don't know exactly what it means, but I feel like that was something to let you like really be in that moment and feel what you needed to feel in that moment. And it was down to letting you feel that like blood run on your hands.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was everybody that loves me leaves.
Right. And do you think that maybe that was part of it? Because I know that love was real, and that loss and that grief you were holding in that moment was intense. And
yeah, it was a lot. The first time he showed himself to me like that, he looked down with his eyes. He didn't speak with his mouth. And he looked at me, and Rocky, he said he loved me, and I did not know how to process that.
Yeah, I that would be an intense, for sure.
Because, I mean, in my mind, I hated myself so much. I'm like, why would you love me? Who the fuck am I? Why am I even a blip? Why am I here? Why am I a blip on the radar? Why do you even recognize me as being something? And I was watching this podcast or listening to this podcast the other day, and this guy said something, and he said, "You're lucky to die one day." And that caught my attention. And he said, "You're lucky to die. There's billions and billions of souls that don't make it to this planet, that are not born and don't get to fall in love. They don't get to die. They don't get a job. They don't get to suffer. They don't get to feel joy." And the reality when he said that was just kind of knocked me back. I'm like, we sat here. I mean, I've done this most of my life and felt insignificant or whatever. And the reality is we're lucky to be here.
Well, and I think when you say you're lucky to be here, to be able to feel emotions, negative or positive, and especially in something intense, I think that's a blessing. And I don't know about you in some of your Reiki sessions, but I've come to people that have like that protection, that wall that they're protecting themselves, which I mean, I built my walls too through my life and protect my heart, protect whatever it is that I'm trying to protect. And I remove those walls that people come in with, because when we block out to protect our hearts, we're blocking out all the good stuff too. And when you say like you're alive and you're lucky because you have the ability to experience love and joy. And even if you haven't found that point in your life to find that love and that joy, you have the ability. And it's a matter of finding that healing and understanding and allowing yourself, give yourself that permission to experience love and joy. And then give yourself that permission to experience it at intense levels.
See, that's where I've been kind of stuck. Well, in the past universe. So hear that. I've healed all these things. I'm at this doorway, and I don't want to say I'm forcing myself, but I feel like I'm forcing myself to step through that doorway of, I'm not that broken person anymore. However, I haven't stepped into the love and the joy and having this beautiful, fun time that I believe I can have. And that's been frustrating me a little bit. But at least I came to the realization about 10 days ago, that's where I'm at. I am looking forward to flowing through that with ease and grace.
Yeah, and that's, I think the important is, like I said, allowing yourself. But I had a different client, and I feel like this is relevant to this conversation. This person had gone to multiple healers, done all these things. This person was actually gifted themselves, she still is, and came in and wanted to do a session with me. So I actually did a clinical hypnosis session just to get a message from our higher self, because I truly believe so many messages that lie within ourselves. And so I was just like, I think you know the answer to this, and you're just not like listening. And we do this session, and she's pissed when it's done, right?
Yeah.
And maybe pissed wasn't the word that she'd use, but whatever, she was pissed, okay? And she's like, well, that's not what I expected. And I was like, well, what was the message? And the message was, you are healing. And she was pissed. And I was like, well, I don't understand. You wanted the message. You wanted to understand around this situation. And that's the message. You're healing. And sometimes people don't even give themselves that credit, right? And it's like, acknowledge where you've come from, like where you are and what you've overcome. And people don't give themselves that acknowledgement and that pat on the back that they've gone through so much bullshit and they're on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And they are healing and they are doing all the work. And I think sometimes people want this like magical moment, like poof, hello, I'm wonderful. And really it's just a process. And sometimes the process is allowing yourself to feel.
And if they had that magical aha moment, if they're standing out there and the fucking bush is on fire, it says, Rocky, this is God, and this is all the beautiful things about you, it's not going to change nothing.
Right.
It might be a key opening a door, but we're not going to turn around and say, oh my gosh, all of my stuff is fixed, because it's a process. And I hate saying it's a process, but it's a process.
It's a process, and it's a never-ending process.
Yeah.
There's always something to be worked on. I mean, there's constantly shit being thrown at us on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we can handle some of the bigger shit, right? But it's still a process. I've been like really hardcore, like nose to the ground for over 3 years doing my own stuff. And I'm like, well, we still got that to work on, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I love it when a client comes in, they're like, okay, this is great. So what do you think? I need one more? And I just laugh. I'm like, I don't know. You probably need one more every month for the rest of your life, but it depends on if you're willing to do the work. And most people aren't willing to do the deep, hard work.
Yeah. And that is interesting that people aren't willing when they know and they can see from other people that have done that deep, hard work. We've gotten uncomfortable. We've put ourselves in these vulnerable positions, right? Done the damn work.
Yeah.
And we're fucking happy.
Well, I find it funny when they'll text me, how much is your session? I'm like, that's such a horrible question to ask. I think the question should be, can we speak for a minute on the phone, and can you tell me what we're going to do in that session? And then you tell them it's roughly the cost of a tank of gas at the end of the day. And that's too expensive. I'm like, but you're going to go out drinking on Saturday night and go to dinner and spend $200-$300 to feel like shit tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you're not spending $150, $200 to change your life and break generational curses and bring in generational blessings.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's just like with money, it's what you want to spend your money on. And I just did like a reel about self-care. It's what people say they don't have the time. And that's bullshit. And I said that in my reel, like it's bullshit because it's where you want to put that time. And the same thing with money.
That's right.
There are some people that, yes, they financially, they cannot afford those sessions. I 100% understand those are real people. But there are those other people that will go out drinking or buy themselves a $100 pair of shoes, but they won't spend $100 on a session to make them feel better and relieve their stress and like really clear some stuff up.
And there's enough free and group things that people can connect with that are on a budget. In this market alone, I don't know about other places. I mean, Beth and I have something tomorrow night. I'm sure you do things.
I have lots of stuff that's $10.
Yeah. It doesn't necessarily need to be personalized one-on-one.
Right.
The message is there.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking earlier on that men do heal. I think the real answer is we don't have a lot of men listening to the podcast. We don't have a lot of men showing up for healing sessions. I don't know about you, but I don't.
No.
It's the ladies that listen to the show chose not to listen to it because something, in my personal opinion, hit with them that they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
There's something happened. Out of all the podcasts, that's the only one that doesn't get listened to by 50%.
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's just one of those things that nobody wants that elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Are men supposed to heal?
Of
course they are. Of course they are.
Well, men are inconvenient. I see us as being inconvenient.
How so?
We joined the Marine Corps, and just on a side note, not everybody can be United States Marine, but everybody can support the United States Marine Corps. So,
Sure, absolutely.
So,
no, I'll agree with that. I lived on a Marine Corps base. I totally understand that statement.
I always tease the other branches can support the Marine Corps, so that's just me jabbing at people, right?
All right, my husband's Navy. Come on now.
I understand. But we go into the military and then we come out. We probably go in broken. We go through the training that we happily go through. We come out even more dysfunctional and broken. And now we're an inconvenience to the country because we have PTSD. We're struggling with drugs and alcohol. They're struggling with drugs and alcohol because they can't process their feelings and emotions because we're told we don't have feelings and emotions. Shut the fuck up. Do your fucking job.
Yeah.
Be a man. Go to work. Be a man. Support the home. Oh, why aren't you supporting me and loving me? By the way, you need to be a man. And that being a man means you're not allowed to have feelings and emotions. You're supposed to be a machine.
Yeah.
And that makes us an inconvenience when that machine isn't operating properly. The wife and children aren't being nurtured and loved the way they want to be nurtured and loved. But then we're told to go to work and be a man.
Well, yeah. I guess I'm not that wife. But I can see that. I can see like having these expectations, right? We go into marriages with expectations. And especially people in those like traditional roles, like husband goes, he works, comes home, he takes care of us, wife cooks and cleans or whatever, takes care of the kids, guy deploys. We got the family, right?
Sure.
And so I can see where that would be the expectation. And
I mean, it was that way in my house. It just was.
Me too. And I married the opposite of my father. Like my husband cries.
Yeah.
My dad didn't.
Yeah. I cry all the fucking time.
I know. I think I might have seen you cry more than my husband.
Yeah, thanks.
I've been with him a little bit longer too.
But it's just like, it's just who I am. Things come up and I'm not afraid of it these days. And I used to be so embarrassed. I mean, I would beat myself up like there's no tomorrow. And it's just like, that's the pain in me leaving my body.
Yeah. I mean, I think crying is healthy. And I can say that concept or perspective has changed because I grew up in a home where the men didn't cry.
Yeah.
They didn't cry. And I mean, I even went to my aunt's murder trial and I watched the men in my family stand there fucking stone ass cold, right? Lined up at the arraignment. And I just remember, I'm like, is anybody sad? It was a 13-year-old girl, and I just didn't understand why, they weren't crying.
Sure.
And I thought that could be something that would break them, but that's what I grew up in. And then I started dating my husband, and his dad, in the first years that we were dating, was sad and cried and grabbed me and hugged me. And I was like, what the actual is going on here, right? And I was just like, and his dad's a big man, right? And I'm like, no, the men don't cry. This doesn't happen. I don't understand what's
Yeah. Well, one of the cool things is I've had some of my Marine Corps buddies reach out, and on my mind, I don't think people pay attention to me, but I guess they do, and that have reached out and said, hey, man, I've been watching you change, and I like it.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people watch. People watch.
Yeah.
When I even get little messages here and there, like, thanks, you're inspiring me. Thanks, you're doing all those little things. So people are watching, even if they're not giving you the hearts on your stuff, right? Oh, yeah. There are those people that are admiring, and eventually I think they're going to get there, right?
They are. At some point I started doing some poetry. I don't do much of it, but I do a little. And I'd written this poem about this person. The person was me being in the front of the storm, taking the brunt of the storm so they could stand behind me and heal. And I believe that wholeheartedly in my healing practice. And, that's why I put myself out there and I talk about the things that are real, and I talk about real life. And, I talk about when I make mistakes, because I make mistakes. And then I talk about how I'm making amends and make those changes. So when I hear my brothers, people that I went to combat with, sit there and say that, there's so much more that they're not saying that I can hear from that. I just love it. I love it. And I'm like, good for you, brother.
I don't know about you, but a lot of what I do is I'm showing up for other people the way I needed somebody else to show up for me, right? And you saying you're standing there, protecting them from the storm, right? And you're being that person that you wish you had in front of you.
Absolutely.
And as healers, that's what we do. And maybe those people that are watching from afar and seeing your story, they really just wish they had that person too.
Yeah. Well, I did a healing session with Megan. Do you know Megan?
Yeah. Blacksmith?
Yep. I did one a while back, and that little boy, that 10-year-old little Wesley, was still in that house where I got abused. And we went through this session where I went to that house and I got him and I put his clothes on and I took him home and I gave him a bath and put his pajamas on,
Yeah.
And brought that piece of me forward, because I just was struggling so much to heal that part of me. When we did that, that just changed everything. And realizing that, that piece of me loved me so much, he stayed there in that spot for me to get to the point where I could heal myself and go get him and bring him forward.
Yeah.
It's just this work is just so beautiful. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And there are so many different ways to get into that, that part of us that is unhealed, to heal us. And Megan being able to take you back there and just be that person, tuck them in, take care of them, love and nurture, right?
Yeah. She's cool. And I've become very good friends with her husband, Nate. And we, I don't know, do you know who Chesty Puller is?
I don't,
Your dad was a Marine?
No, my dad was not a Marine.
Oh, I thought you said you grew up on a Marine base.
No, I lived on a Marine Corps base when my husband was stationed there.
Oh, okay. I understand now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I get I'm a little slow.
That's fine.
the blonde/gray hair.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah. Well, Chesty Puller is the highest decorated Marine in Marine Corps history, and Nate took me to Chesty's house, which is an hour and a half from here. So a friend of his named Alex owns that. And we did a podcast for the Marine Corps birthday this year, and we did it at Chesty Pullers' house. And the cool thing is, I think that episode, I don't know, there's like close to 100 downloads on that one. And so I know most of those were Marines that listened to it. So it was fun getting that message out, because we talk about some of this stuff on the show, and doing that there and reaching out to those jarheads and having those conversations. I just absolutely love that. And Megan and Nate have become very good friends of mine.
That's awesome. They are very good people. And do you want to know a fun fact about me?
Sure.
I am also born on the Marine Corps birthday.
You were born on the Marine Corps birthday.
November 10th.
Oh. Hey, that is the holiest day of the year if you're a United States Marine.
I know. I used to love when I lived on the base. All the guys were in their dress uniforms at the gates. Mm-hmm. And I would tell them, I was just like, oh, y'all got dressed up for my birthday. And they're like, ma'am, it's our birthday. And I said, oh, no, it's mine. And they'd look at my ID and I would get the biggest oorah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, that's the one day out of the year the chow hall could actually make the food like taste good. I'm like, yeah, it's a new concept.
Just November 10th.
Yeah, taste and texture. Imagine that. But when we were there, I could hear Chesty. I was channeling Chesty when we were there. It was really cool. So I had a great conversation with him, and then we went back. I think in October. Then we went back on the Marine Corps birthday and did an episode, and his wife was there, and she took me all through the house, and she showed me where she sat and waited for him, and you could see her. I could see her sitting there reading her book, waiting for him to come home from war. And Chesty said, out of all the things he's done in his life, the most difficult one was getting her to marry him. That was his biggest challenge and their greatest love. I like that.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So now, when we finished that session, what was the last thing you took me to? What was I to go to my higher self? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I take you up for spiritual guidance or to your higher self to understand why you went to the different points in your life. So I like to do it at the end of each point, but you kind of, sometimes people will jump around a little faster before I get there. So, but we do, I always like to tie it all up in a bow so you understand the point of everything.
So that took me to, I went to heaven.
Yeah, that's a first and only so far. Yeah, you did go to heaven, and my jaw might have hit the ground again.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Why did I go there?
So, I mean, my understanding of why you went there is because you felt like everybody left you, right? And that's why the point of the session was, and you went up there and everybody was there. And you had that feeling, and you started crying, and you were like, I'm not alone. You're not alone. And I think that's a really important lesson for everybody, because there's so many things in life that we feel so isolated. Mm-hmm. And honestly, we're never actually alone. Just because there's not somebody physically right there doesn't mean energetically, spiritually, that we're actually alone. And even within ourselves, we have our higher self, right?
Yeah.
That's one for people that don't know. Like I always tell people, it's the most purest part of you. The part that's closest to God, source, whatever you refer to like the higher power as, that's your part of you. And I always, a really good one too that I always like to say is like, I think of the little angel and devil on our shoulders in the cartoons, right?
Yeah,
and I always say the higher self is that angel, right? That angel that's sitting on our shoulder and telling us the good stuff and telling us to be good and do the good things. Yeah, so you went up there and that higher self, and instead you went to heaven and you understood that you were not alone. And honestly, you've never been alone because you do. You have that higher self. You have your spiritual team and all the others. We have God. We have Jesus. Whoever we believe in, they're always there.
Sure.
For us.
Well, one of the things that I adopted or whatever in my life is my friend Scott, who he was a very good friend of mine in the Marine Corps, committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And I had told his spirit that I would finish this life for the both of us. And then my Uncle Robert died in Vietnam. He was in the Marine Corps. He was, at the time, the youngest service person ever to receive the Medal of Honor. And to date, he's the second youngest person ever to receive the Medal of Honor. And I did 6 years in the Marine Corps, so I did my 4, then I finished his last 2, and then I'm living the rest of this life for him, right? And when we went up there, they came to me and they said that I don't have to carry that burden because they were already in heaven.
Right.
So, and I felt that weight off of my chest. Here's one thing about Marines: we're loyal. We're loyal motherfuckers, and we're hard-headed. And it took them coming to me and having that conversation, because Jesus couldn't have come to me and told me that.
No, you needed them.
Yeah, I wouldn't have fucking listened. He wasn't a Marine, so it's just how we work.
Right.
And then my mom came, and then my brother. It was interesting for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, and when you go into that state, you go wherever it is that you need to go to heal. And for you, you needed to see that you actually aren't alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun and a little crazy.
Yeah. How have you felt since then?
I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good. Stuff have changed. Things have shifted. Things have changed.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then we're doing another session this week, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how that one goes too.
Yeah. So if you guys hear me start clucking like a chicken halfway through the podcast next week, you'll know she did something
Y'all
to me.
know it's not me because I do the pig.
That's funny. So, Rocky, thank you for coming on the show. If somebody wanted to connect with you and reach out, and do you do remote work, or do you just
I do
personal?
remote work. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We can do everything virtually as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got people in Russia, Japan, China, Netherlands now. We just picked up Oregon. I think we're in like 42 of the states. We're even the 51st state.
Is that Puerto Rico?
No, that would be Canada. Sorry,
Okay,
my Canadian friends are like, fuck US.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
Go ahead and.
I'm just teasing
They are
everybody.
definitely not claiming us right now.
No, hey, I have some of the most amazing Canadian friends. I love Canada so much.
I have some too, and I adore them.
Yeah. So basically, people around the world can connect with you, and how would they connect?
Probably the easiest way to say would be to go to my website, and they can all my contacts there. So, and it's TuneIn, the number 2 wellness.com. So TUNI. Oh my God, I can't even spell. TUNEIN number 2 wellness WELLNESS.com.
And do you have Facebook and Instagram?
I do. If you go into the TuneIn with the number 2 wellness, you'll find me on both of those.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, Rocky, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. You are a fantastic healer. I think we're becoming very good friends, and
yes.
I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And just thank you for changing my life, and thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for trusting me, and it's been an honor.
Well, we will see you in a couple days.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Enlightenment Unknown with Wes Coons, your guide on the quest for self-discovery and the version of you we haven't met yet.